Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromsø Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. Just past the year's halfway point in 2026, and I want to share with you some albums that I've enjoyed released so far this year. We can call it my top 10 albums of the year, and I have tried to include some stuff that I think maybe you haven't heard yet. And I would love it if you would, in return, recommend to me things you think I might be interested in listening to. And in that way, we can expand each other's sphere of musical interest. I often listen to some quite abrasive, experimental, intense rock music. This year, I haven't really been gravitating towards that kind of noisy, atonal, aggressive style. A lot of the things I'm going to be recommending here are a little more pensive, a little more atmospheric, maybe a little more ambient. I'm also going to make a playlist with one track from each album, which I'll put in the description. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know if I'll be able to find all of them, but I'm going to do my best. Number 10, the first album on my list. I'm going to have to read the name of the composer because I'm not very good at pronouncing names from this region of the world. Natalia Tsupryk, I guess her name is. She's a Ukrainian violin player and composer who's done an album with Angus MacRae. Now, technically, some of this album is actually compiled music from two previous EPs, but it also opens with three new compositions, so I'm treating it as a new album. The album's called Inventions. It's a very beautiful, atmospheric album created from piano and violin with some echo, some delay, some treatment on the instruments, but otherwise not much additional programming or synthesizer work or anything like that. It's really kind of classical compositions. Might remind you a little bit of Rachel's, if you remember that group from the early 2000s. Also maybe the work of Max Richter. I find it to be really beautiful, very soothing, but also quite kind of exploratory and experimental at times. I really recommend it if you're interested in this type of instrumental music. Album number 9 on my list is called Zero. It's by somebody called Alewya. This is an album I've only recently discovered. Alewya is a musician and artist from the United Kingdom. She, I believe, was born in Sudan but came to the UK with her parents. One of them is from Ethiopia, the other from Egypt. And you can hear especially maybe the Egyptian, North African influence on her music, which is a very intricate, interesting mixture of different styles. She's using some R&B elements, some Arabic music elements, some elements of reggae. You hear that especially in some of her singing. I think it's a really interesting album and it's very kind of charismatic. She has great delivery and it's kind of all of a piece, and yet the tracks are all quite different at the same time. Difficult to explain, difficult to describe. Quite exciting. I really like it. Album number 8, we can say this is my heavy rock inclusion. It's Big Brave with the album In Grief or Hope. Big Brave are a really interesting band. They come from Canada, from Montreal, I believe, and they have a kind of conventional rock lineup. They have a vocalist, two guitarists, a bass player, but they create music that is so extremely slow and that revolves around a lot of resonances, feedback, drone guitars, drawn out compositions that create a real atmosphere that is almost like analogous to a kind of heavy type of ambient music. The singer has a really beautiful voice and she is interested in poetry. Their previous album, they adapted a lot of poems from Emily Dickinson, among others. She's written the lyrics for this album and it's a kind of meditation on grief and hope, on fundamental aspects of the human existence. It's a bit far out in terms of their sound, like some of the vocals are treated, but at the same time it's melodic. Great record. Album number 7. This is an album called Lavender Network by Fire-Toolz. I bought this album on vinyl because I love it so much. It's really interesting. I mean, I've been listening to Fire-Toolz for her last couple of records. She makes music that is a kind of combination of like breakcore, ambient music, vaporwave, and black metal, if those genres mean anything to you. There's sort of some screamed vocals, some very hectic program drumming, She's an extremely virtuosic guitarist, and she also uses kind of melodic patterns and synth sounds that almost sound like kind of the music that's made for computer games or for infomercials. It's a really interesting style, continually fascinating, very exciting, and again, I use the word virtuosic both in the production, in the playing. This album, possibly her best to date. I really like the previous one also, but Lavender Network is great. Album number 6 is from a project called Discovery Zone, which is the experimental pop project from an American producer, DJ, artist called, let me read her name, JJ Whale, I guess it's pronounced. She was commissioned to make a project for a planetarium in Berlin. And this album, which is called Library Copy Do Not Remove, is the record of this performance. The concept of the album, as it was originally performed inside the dome of the planetarium in Berlin, was a kind of ever-expanding circular library that contained all the information that has ever existed. And one of the tracks is a sort of ambient and spoken word track describing this environment. It's very trippy. The album itself it uses sort of old-fashioned electronic sounds that might remind you of Kraftwerk or other sort of early electronic music, combined with more contemporary ambient sounds. And there's also some field recording stuff worked in, the sound of what I think might be melting ice, for example, and then processed vocals. It's a pretty abstract record, but I really, really like it. Album number 5, I'm going with Crybaby by Vince Staples. I already made a video about this, which you can watch if you want to. I'm going to link it in the description. This album sonically is brilliant. It has fantastic drum sounds across the whole record. They're all slightly different. The production is beautiful. The songwriting is excellent. The lyrics are brilliant. It's a satirical engagement with American society and particularly with race, racism and structural inequality. Vince Staples is on top form as a vocalist, as a performer, charismatic, sardonic. The style of the album to me sounds like a combination of many different musical approaches kind of synthesized together, but I learned from Professor Sky that the album is in a genre called folk soul. Shout out Professor Sky. Album number 4 on my list, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce the name of the artist correctly, but the artist is called something like Sphäre. I assume that's German. The album is called Nebular Resonance, and this is the deep audio drone ambient, dark ambient inclusion on the list for this time. It's these long, abstract, drawn-out compositions of pure sonics. I guess it's like stretched sounds, synthesizers, each sound kind of creeping into the image at an almost glacial pace, and the whole record is supposed to create in your mind the image of a planet somewhere far out in the cosmos, perhaps orbiting a sun at a great distance so that the oceans are frozen. It's great for sleeping, it's great for walking, it's great for helping you concentrate, but it's also great to just listen to closely. Album number 3, I don't know how to pronounce the artist's name. I'm guessing it's like Xylitol, and the album is called Blumenfantasie. An electronic album, a little bit reminiscent of some of the 90s Aphex Twin stuff. There's breaks in it, drum and bass influence beats. It's intricate, intense, but not abrasive. In some ways, kind of expansive and beautiful at the same time as it's quite fast-paced at times. I've listened to this album a whole lot. I listen to it all the time. Each track is different, drawing maybe on like slightly different traditions within electronic and beats-based music. The synthesizers and other sounds mixed in are just so beautifully constructed. I really recommend listening to this album if you are in any way interested in electronic music. Album number 2 was nearly album number 1, but I switched it out at the last minute. This is Mitski, Nothing Is About to Happen to Me. If you've heard Mitski stuff before, she has had albums that are more kind of indie, punky, some stuff that's more folk oriented. She had an album that was almost wholly like throwback 80s electronic music. Her previous album, The Land Is Inhospitable and So Are We, was leaning into a sort of country type of space. And the first time I listened to Nothing Is About to Happen to Me, I felt like it was a sort of slightly less good version of that. There was a live album of that, the Land is Inhospitable project, that only came out on Bandcamp. And you could hear on this new album that it's the same band. Like you could hear the arrangements are similar. So I was initially a little disappointed because she's often changed it up a lot. But the more I listen to it, the more I hear that she's incorporating sounds, ideas, styles from her whole career up until this point. And the songwriting is exceptionally good. If you've never heard Mitski before and you're thinking you might start with this album, but you just want to like try it out, I recommend starting in the middle and start with track 4, which is called If I Leave. It has this incredible drum part and the interplay between the drums and the bass guitar. It's very simple but extremely effective, and the song she builds up around it is just fantastic. And then it's followed by a song called Dead Women. If I'd have thought about it, this would have been on my list of disturbing songs. It's so well written, but it's so extremely dark. And I think Mitski's in the running for like one of the best living songwriters. She's up there with Fiona Apple, in my opinion. Album number 1 on my mid-year list is by And Also the Trees, and the album is called The Devil's Door. And Also the Trees are the forgotten post-punk goth band. They are at least as good as bands that were coming up at the same time as them, like Susie and the Banshees, like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. But they never really broke through, and I think this is partly to do with the vocalist's style. He has a very unique, recognizable singing style that's between recitation and singing. It can sound like he can't sing, but when you really listen to them, actually he's an excellent singer. It's just not immediately accessible. Their lyrics also were often very pastoral. They were more about the English countryside, influenced by romantic poetry, less urban, less gritty, but sometimes still quite dark. On this new album, they still have this kind of gothic darkness to their sound and this very poetic register in their lyrics, but the music is maybe more influenced by European folk styles, like maybe Greek and Eastern European instrumentation, kind of mixed together maybe with some Scott Walker and the soundtrack work of Morricone. It's just an incredible, unique space, this album. Every track is great. There's some beautiful instrumental work. The vocalist is so commanding. I really recommend you check it out. It's my favourite album at the moment. So there you go. There were 4 or 5 other albums that were in the running for this list that I had to cut. And maybe I'll do videos about those separately. But I hope you enjoyed listening to my list. Maybe you'll find something that you want to listen to. And again, please recommend me something. I would love to hear what you're listening to, and I would love to find out some new artists or some new material that's been released this year. Thanks for listening. See you again soon.